Hi everyone, Carlos back with another video. Today we're going to be talking about STORJ and my journey so far. I say STORJ, I don't know if that's how it's pronounced. It could be STORJ, it could be STORJ, not sure. If anybody knows, please comment and let us know how to pronounce it. So why STORJ? Why am I looking into this? Well, as you know, I've turned off my Chia farming rig and I have a lot of hard disks, a lot of network storage devices available, and I've been looking on the internet to see if there is any way I can utilize those. I'm not necessarily looking for a big money earner, but some passive income way of utilizing them. So I stumbled across STORJ, let's call it STORJ, and looked into it, and for the past week I've been experimenting in setting up a node, and I'm going to show you how that's gone so far. So what is STORJ? Yeah, let's stick with STORJ. It's a company that's providing network storage capabilities to large organizations, alleviating the need for them to have their own data centers, helping them to reduce their data center costs. And I think one of the figures they quote is about 90% reduction in costs if you utilize the STORJ network for your data needs, but still providing enterprise level durability and the performance and security all around the data. And how they do that is that people like me set up a node, and a person who sets up a node could be many different things. It could be somebody who has got some infrastructure like me, some NAS units, hard drives, and they want to utilize that and provide data storage capabilities to the STORJ network. Or it could be somebody who has just got a gaming PC, has a large hard drive in there, and has several terabytes available of storage on that machine, and they want to offer that. It could also be a company with its own data center, and I think they cater for the lot. So what we're going to be talking about today is I'm going to be going through some things that I've got written down here, if you just bear with me. So how do you become a node operator? We're going to look at that. We're going to look at the various installation methods that are available to you, because there are several. One of them being a Linux node system, one of them being a Windows system, one of them being a TrueNAS system, and the other one being a particular to the QNAP network storage devices. And then we're going to look at earnings, or the projection of earnings that they tell you about on the website, which do sound like they may work for me. Time will tell. We're then going to have a look at my setup and how I decided to set it up, because there are various ways you can do it. Obviously steering away from certain security aspects, because I don't want to divulge those online. And then we'll have a look at the rig itself, look at the dashboard, and go through what's displayed on the dashboard so that you know how you can easily monitor your node. Then we'll have a look at a dashboard that's online that shows you the entirety of the STORJ. Really got to sort that out. STORJ network, so you can see how many node operators they are, how many of them are validated, how many are unvalidated, and we'll go into that in a minute. And so the plan is, hopefully, that I will make frequent videos showing you how things are going, because it is a very slow process. It's not turn the machine on and start earning from day one. There are a number of steps you have to go through. You have to go through a period of vetting and auditing, where the servers on the STORJ network will interrogate your system to make sure that you're reliable, you've got the sufficient uptime and processing speed, storage, and that the retrieval of files from your system is quick, and so is the placement of files. So let's have a start with that. Okay, let's have a look and see how you become a STORJ node operator. So all the information you need to know as a potential, they still call you farmers, funny enough, as a potential farmer or operator on the STORJ network, is to go to storj.dev/node, and here they have a menu on the left hand side, and if you go through this tells you absolutely everything. So we're going to touch on a few points just quickly, the important areas. So they give you a little bit of an introduction. It says it's an S3 compatible platform. So if you know a bit about enterprise file storage, you'll know what that means. And then they tell you, how to configure and run your own storage node and the requirements. So if we just click into that at the moment, There are a number of steps you have to go through. There's making sure that you've got the prerequisites. So if we go into there, we can see that they've got a recommended and a minimum spec for hardware. So let's look at the minimum spec. So you need one processor core for each storage node. So it is, although I've not explored it yet, possible to run more than one node on the same machine. I've heard that other people do it by virtualization or separate machines, and there are a few gotchas around that setup, but we'll steer clear of that for the moment. We'll keep that for another video. So one processor core per node. So, you know, if you've got a decent processor, you've got potential, you can run several nodes eventually. And then you need one hard drive. They don't like SMR hard drives, you know, the ones that are, I think, primarily used for video surveillance recording, I think. You can connect your drives without RAID controllers, nothing like that. But if you do have RAID on, they want you to pass through IT mode it. You need 500 gigabytes of available space per storage node. So that's not a lot these days. I'm sure a lot of people have more than that. I know I have. You need to be able to transit up to 1.5 terabytes per month, which, you know, it helps if you've got an unlimited broadband service deal like I have. So we don't have any worries there. 1 MIPS of upload bandwidth per terabyte of capacity, 3 MIPS download bandwidth per terabyte of capacity. So I've got, I think it's like a gigabit network connection with about 127 upload. So can cater for this quite easily on top of everything else I'm asking of it. And then uptime, a minimum of 99.3% per month. Max total downtime of 5 hours monthly. So you need a resilient system. You need to make sure that your patching operations for your OS or for any of the other software are done very quickly and you get that thing back up online. And then if we go into system requirements here, you can do it on Windows. So I've chosen to go with Windows 10. I did originally try a Linux version on Ubuntu. That was a lot more complicated, and if you're not familiar with command line in Linux, you can get into a lot of bother, and there are a lot more installation steps. So I did try that. I had many problems at the end of it and decided to go for the Windows option in the end, which I must say was a lot easier and a lot quicker to get to the point you needed to be. Also Mac OS they support, and then they give you a variety of sort of suggestions around firewall and things like that, power supplies, you know, UPS, all those sort of things to consider, and then tell you a little bit about the file system that's going to be used. So skipping over that quite briefly, the first thing you've got to do is you have to get what's called an authorization token, and there are a number of steps to do this, and the first one is by putting in an email address that's going to basically be associated with your node. And once you put that email address in and you've specified that you're not a robot, you can get a return string to the screen which incorporates your email address and then a very long authorization token. And the immediate thing you do there is store that away somewhere safely so that you can utilize that in steps coming up later on. The other thing you have to do is set up port forwarding. So this was not complicated, but basically what you've got to do is you've got to open certain ports on your router, and you have to sign up with a dynamic DNS service provider, and they make the suggestion of using one called NoIP, and that's who I went with. And they do offer a free dynamic DNS for as long as you want it, and so that's what I've done initially rather than going to a paid plan while I'm doing experimentation. So that was good. The only downside to that is that every 30 days you have to go in and say I still want that dynamic DNS, and basically what that's doing is it's allowing you to choose a readable named URL that will point to your public IP address of your broadband service, and everything talks through that. So it tells you how to get one of those free host names using NoIP. That was a doddle. No problems at all there. And obviously that gives you a name that you need to use in later steps as well. And then on Windows, you have to set up a dynamic update client service where you link in the name of the host name that you've chosen with no IP. And you'll see here on most of these pages, there is this sort of setup here where you've got 3 buttons, one for Linux, Mac OS and Windows. And if you switch between them, you'll see that the setup for each section is different depending on what OS you're using. So I'll stick with the Windows, where I had to set up this dynamic update client, and they give you a link here that goes to their the software for no IP that supports that, and you just install that on your operating system as normal. And then gives you some PowerShell commands to run now to set up port forwarding and things like that if you want to do it on your router. Or you can go into your router itself and make the changes that are required into your sort of firewall rules or port forwarding rules on your router, and also gives you some PowerShell commands to make sure it's working on the PC that you're using as well. It is very straightforward as long as you take the steps very slowly. It all flows and everything works out the box. In some cases, they give you 2 commands in 2 separate windows, and the first one will be for use in PowerShell, the second one will be for use in just a command window, so you have the option of either of those if you don't have PowerShell installed. And it tells you everything to do with firewall, setting up the rules, firewall rules on your PC that is running this node. Once again, very simple. I had no problems running through that. Good lot of screenshots, current screenshots that show you exactly how it looks in the Windows 10 and Windows 11 operating systems. So that was fairly straightforward. Next thing you have to do is configure something called Quick, and I believe this is a network protocol that sits on top of TCP/IP and UDP, and allows for, from what I can make out, faster network communications and transfer of data by stacking it up in some special manner. I haven't gone into it in a lot of detail, but it is a requirement for a node operator, so I've just gone through and configured that as they've asked you to do. So that was fairly easy as well. Then you have to create an identity. So once again, this is a lot of PowerShell scripting using some of the information that you've gathered before. Very simple on Windows, not a lot to do at all until you get to this point where you ask the system to make you an authorization identity token. So this comes down to how fast your actual PC is that you're running your node on or intend to run your node on. And it can take anything from a few minutes to a few hours to a few days. It really is a question of luck. And you'll see once you run the PowerShell command that your computer is trying to generate the correct difficulty to get the required level authentication token that can be used for your identity. So I had a bit of luck with this. The first time round when I was doing the Linux installation version, it was within half an hour it found a token that it could use, which was surprising, but that machine's quite a hefty machine. It's 128 gig of RAM in that machine, and it's also a 20 core. Granted, an aging Xeon processor in there, but it still did it very quickly. In the Windows version, it did take a little bit longer, and this might have something to do with the fact that STORJ tell you they prefer you to set up on Linux as opposed to Windows. I think you get better performance in a lot of different areas if you do that. But eventually, yeah, after about 5 hours, I did get the identity on Windows, and I was able to complete the authorization of that identity on the Windows machine. Once again, all the steps are here, all the commands are here. You just have to copy them and paste them into your PowerShell instance that you've got running on your node. And it can be done very easily by just having this browser session open on that node machine and just copying and pasting those commands as and when they're required over. So very, very simple. Once you've got that identity, there are a number of certificate files that it creates on the operating system in a certain folder, and they advise you to back these up externally to something like a USB device and keep them safe, or offline to another hard drive or file system you have. So once that's done, there's the node software itself, which is a lot easier on Windows than it is on Linux, let me tell you that. There was a number of packages to install on Linux and configuration in the command line, and it took a long time. But with Windows, it was just, what do you want to install? Do you want to install the GUI for Windows, which I did, and it's just an application installation and various questions and prompts during that installation for you to put in details. Now, mainly those details are about your no IP host name that you've set up, where your storage is, which can be a map drive to a local hard drive within your machine, or it could be an external source like I have, which is a network address storage area. And there's a little bit more setup involved with that I'll tell you about when we're looking at the machine itself. But if you've got a local hard drive, it's just a question of specifying the map drive that you want to use. There are other things like the address that you want the STORJ token to be sent to as you earn it. Because yes, you're not getting paid in dollars or pounds or anything like this. You're getting paid in a token called STORJ, which you can then convert into fiat currency. And STORJ has a value. So there are wallets out there that will provide you with addresses. I chose to use MetaMask because it's an ERC20 token and it's supported straight from MetaMask, so on the Ethereum chain. So you put your MetaMask wallet in. Few other questions. I can't remember off the top of my head, but a very simple application installation, and then you're pretty much up and running. So as I said before, there are various flavors of node operator you can be. So the CLI install here is obviously for the Linux users, and that gives you the plethora of installation packages and commands that you have to run. The GUI install for Windows is just a Windows installation. The application is made by STORJ, excuse me, and very simple install. Then if you've got a NAS device or a PC that is running true NAS, you can actually install your node software on that. And if you're lucky enough to have a QNAP storage device, they actually make an app that installs on that. Now, I looked at this initially because I thought that would be the best way of doing this setup. It would be best if I could just have the whole node running on my ReadyNAS 2100, so it was all isolated in that machine. No need for additional PCs or network traffic. Everything was running in there. Unfortunately, they've not gone as far as to make an app that's supported on Netgear devices. They only support QNAP at the moment. But if you have a QNAP network storage device, it might be worth looking at that because it's it's self-contained and a lot easier to set up. So that is it. Once you've installed that GUI install for Windows, things start to happen. You can call up the dashboard to see if your node's operating, and it will fire up. And we're going to go and have a look at that in a minute, and I'll tell you all about how it started up and what information you got in it and how it's grown over the past few days. So now the bit that you're probably very eager to hear about, and that is the earning potential from this venture. Now, you're not going to make a lot of money straight off the bat. This is a long-term venture, and that's why it appealed to me. I wanted something that I could run for a long period of time that would eventually establish itself as a passive income stream. So I wasn't worried about earning money straight off the bat. I know that it's going to take a while to go through the vetting and the auditing procedure to get a copy of the data that's distributed on the STORJ network to my setup, and depending on how much drive space you've got, you will get a portion of that data, and then you have to make sure that you're online for 99.6% of the time so that you can service the main satellite's needs for getting at that data and servicing it to their clients. So what do you get from being a node operator? Well, obviously you get paid for the amount of storage that you provide and that is populated with data. You get paid for data requests from your system, from your node. You get paid for assisting in the repair of other nodes where data is taken from your machine to support that. And you also get paid for your bandwidth that's used for auditing purposes. So there's several different streams there. And here they have a breakdown of that. So, and it does say storage per terabyte per month, $1.50. Now, I am assuming that that isn't how much storage you have available. That's how much storage you've currently got populated with data. So I'm not expecting to make $1.50 this month, because it'll take a while to get a terabyte's worth of storage onto my system. I have, I think it's 20 terabytes available at the moment. So I'm not expecting 20 times that in the first month. I'm only expecting to be paid for the portion of data that I've got going onto that system for the first month. Egress, that's $2 per terabyte. So if you serve up a terabyte in a month of data to requesters, you can expect to earn $2 for that. And for audit and repair, it's the same per terabyte. So that is what you're looking at. It's not a big money earner. For me, I wanted to set up this first node, run it, see how far and how long it took to get it to earn money of some sort, and then think about bringing other nodes online. And this is something that the STORJ documentation advises you on doing, getting your first node up and running, fully populated and servicing before you even think about bringing another node online, because there can be a conflict. Don't forget, in most cases, you will only have that one outbound broadband connection that you're going through, that public IP address through your hostname. And if you start running two nodes at the same time, you get a conflict where they're starting to get audited, vetted, and getting incoming data and outgoing data. It's best to get a node fully complete first before you bring another on. So I've got another 3 network storage devices, all fully populated with disks. Depending on how well this goes, I may consider bringing those online, and I've already started to look at purchasing other hardware to handle that. I may be able to do it on the one PC that I've got running, but I'll let you into a little secret. I recently got hold of a rack mount PC, a 1-unit rack mount PC at a very good price that would be ideal for running a node on, complete with Windows 10 already installed on it. So that's earmarked to become my second node, because it'll fit nicely in the rack, better than the PC I've got in there. Or that might become a new Chia node in the future when the new consensus algorithm and plot formats come out. Don't know yet, but for now it's going to be quite possibly a node if this goes well. Anyway, so there are things around minimum payments as well. I'm not going to read all that. You can't expect them to pay you the few pennies you've made each month, because of the transaction fees on that Ethereum network. So the gas fees are quite high on that. So they make sure that they'll pay you out at a time that is convenient for them, when the gas prices are not going to be ridiculous. So it's worth reading all about that, which is at the bottom of that section there. And it tells you all about the gas prices here and all those sort of things. So next thing then, let's just have a brief look at my Linux experience, and I'll tell you what went wrong. I won't say it went wrong, but it was a little bit out of my area of expertise. I haven't been using Linux for very long. I have a Linux Mint installation on my laptop here. I had a previous one on the machine that I'm using now as a Windows node. So I've done very little scripting in the CLI. Got comfortable with installing Linux packages on demand, and there were a lot I had to find out myself where they were missing from the default build of the OS. But the trouble is, the Linux node installation, they require you to put a certain version of Ubuntu on, and I think I made the mistake of updating that version of Ubuntu once it had finished its installation. And the problem was that when it got to performing some of the application installs from packages and things like that, they started to fail, and I think that's where I ran into problems. One of the things that has to be installed is Docker. the Docker container, which you don't need on Windows. It might be within the application, the GUI Windows application, but it's a separate install on the Linux version and very difficult. So if you're a Linux person, if you're very comfortable with the CLI, installing packages that aren't on the default OS installations, and you've got a good grasp of being able to find things on the file system, locate log files, investigate, commands to interrogate log files and find you certain bits of information, you might be all right. But for me, that was a little bit out of my reach. But I did try, and I did persevere with it over 3 days. And I had several problems. I could not get the dashboard loading. It wouldn't work. My port forwarding was not working correctly. So I gave up on that and started from scratch with Windows, which was a much quicker transition to success. That's all I'll say. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and have a look at my rig. I'm going to show you where I've sited this PC, how I've connected it, and what it's talking to, and I'll give you a brief idea of how I've got it talking to the ReadyNAS units, because in the STORJ documentation they do advise you not using a NAS in any capacity. They much prefer you to use local drives in the machine that is running your node. I have got drives and I could have done that, but I wanted to see how it would work with my ReadyNAS units, because that's what I wanted to utilize in that rack I've got, that Dell rack. So let's go and have a look at that, and then we'll have a look at the dashboard and talk through all the things on the dashboard, and hopefully that'll give you an idea of where I've got to in the number of hours it's been up and running. And we can continue the journey after this video, and I'll give you frequent updates of where it's got to, any differences I see in the volume of data that I'm getting or is going out, the bandwidth usage and the earnings. Okay, so let's go and have a look at that. Okay, so here we are in my mining room. Apologies if the sound is terrible, but there are other machines running here. I'm still mining Casper there behind me. Just want to get to the minimum payout amount before I turn that machine off. So that's still going for a little while. And then obviously this makes quite a bit of noise as well with the various fans going. But what we've got, as you can see, I've got my 4 ReadyNAS units in here, and the top one is now active again, all 4 disks running in that. That had 4 by 6 terabyte hard drives in there, which gives a total of 24, but I decided to go, rather than have a JBOD setup, I just went for a default RAID setup, which has left about, I think it's 22 terabyte of that available. And that is set up not with access via NFS, it's ISCSI. So I've created an ISCSI LUN on the machine itself and allocated all that disk space to it. And then of course, setting it up as a STORJ node, it suggests that you don't utilize all the hard disk, you save about 10% of it off. So there is actually 20 terabytes in total assigned to the STORJ node for data storage. So that is linked to my UPS here, my Rhino UPS, which is still going strong, has kicked in and worked when I've had a power cut, so I'm well happy with that. That was a very good second-hand purchase on eBay. But further down here is right at the bottom, and I'll take us down there in a minute. That monitor is sitting on top of the old Dell, not Precision, might be Precision, 20 core 128 gigabyte PC down there. You can just see it sitting under the monitor. It just slotted in nicely down there out of the way, and it meant that I could utilize some cabling from the UPS that was originally put in place for the NetApp disk array I've got here, and use it in that PC as well. So at the moment, if we have a power cut, not only will the NAS continue, but the node will continue. The only problem I have is that I'm not 100% sure if my broadband will continue. We've got a big infrastructure under the road network here, and I'm going to get in contact with BT, British Telecom, to find out if in the event of a electrical incident, like a substation problem that takes out the electricity in the area, will the infrastructure serving the broadband under the road still continue? Do they have backup services supporting that? Because if they do, that means that I just need to put a UPS on my router, which are very cheap because they're only small DIN plugs on the router, and everything should carry on working, which is what you want if you're setting up a node. You do want to make sure that this machine is going to stay up. Anyway, let's go and have a look at the dashboard down there now. Okay, you're going to have to forgive me if the sound is awful, because I've got the tripod right up against the monitor here. Now, the reason I put the monitor in here is just to keep an eye on things, whilst it's in its infancy. There are some steps you can take to install SSH so that you can get remote access to this machine, and I'll be doing that at some point in the future, but I've not had time to do it completely yet. So let's have a look at what's going on here, and I can see immediately there has been a difference since I last looked at it a few hours ago. The uptime here was, well, it was in excess of 60 hours, but now we have an uptime of 1 hour 44, which means we've had a dropout for some reason. I'm not sure what. It could be something to do with the STORJ network, because I have disabled Windows updates for 7 days on here, and I have done the latest updates, so I wouldn't have expected an operating system reboot of any sort. It might have been a network outage or something along those lines, but very strange to see that. As I said, this uptime here was in the 60-day mark, if not more. So this is your dashboard that you can see on your local node, and you get access to that by doing localhost and port 14002 in a browser. It's funny enough, I'm not a great fan of Internet Explorer, of Edge or Internet Explorer for that matter, and I'm usually a Chrome user, but I did notice that Chrome had problems displaying the interface in a nice manner, so I went back to Edge and it's a lot better. So just a tip there, don't bother with Chrome on the machine if you are happy with Edge, because it does look a lot better in there. Okay, and you can see there's a refresh happening every now and then. I've got a refresh plugin extension on Edge here that just refreshes the screen, because it doesn't do that by default. So the first thing you'll see at the top is your node ID here. There are some options for a light mode or dark mode. I'm not sure what's going to look the best. I think the dark mode will probably look the best, so we'll switch back with that. And some stuff about notifications that you may or may not get. And then this top section here is your status, so we're online. Quick, it's configured to use port 28967 for UDP and TCP IP. That says status of OK. The uptime here, it would be nice if you hovered over that and it told you when it last rebooted, because it would be good to know when it did that. This part here changes every now and then, so you can see 1 minute ago we had contact, so that meant one of the satellite STORJ servers out there decided to make contact with my node for whatever reason, whether it be audit or vetting purposes, or to send some data, or to retrieve some data. This tells you the current version of the software that you're using. I have not looked into where you get the upgrades, or how you get the upgrades, or how you implement the upgrades yet, but that'll be coming in a future video. And then it has a period marker here which looks like it's by month. There's a drop down here, and when you initially start your dashboard up, it's set to all satellites, and I think you can see by dropping down there are 4 options there. I've not bothered changing from the default at this point in time. I just wanted to see what was going on. Now, this first widget here is the bandwidth used during the month. So you can see at the moment it's saying I've had a total of 187 and a bit gigabytes of bandwidth usage, and you can you can hover over the graph and see. So for today there you can see the egress and ingress usage, repair and audit. So we've only had 10.75 kilobytes of data moved with regards to audit. It looks like I've helped repair somebody, or I've been repaired with 649 megabytes of data, and there's been 38.8 gigabytes of data coming in and 5.52 gigabytes of data going out. So that's quite high, easy to see. And you can even switch the graph by just saying, I just want to see the egress of data, or I want to see the ingress of data. Right, so moving down, we get to this section here. So on the left, we've got disk utilization and remaining. So this is the average disk space that has been used for the month. So it's saying 48.1 gigabytes, which seems funny because we can see there that today it's saying it's used 105 gigabytes. So there must be some maths going on for how they're displaying this figure to get an average, I think, rather than an average per day rather than what the total is at the time. And then on the right hand side we have another widget that's showing you the total disk space you've got available. As I say, it was about 19-20 terabytes I was offering. You've got your standard wheel here showing utilization, and you can see that a total of 168.04 gigabytes is used currently on my system. There's 18.83 terabytes free, nothing allocated to trash or overused. And then moving a bit further down, we can now see those 4 satellites that have been applied by default, and the details of whether you're suspended or you're going through audit. Now what they say is if you get too much downtime, I think you get a few grace periods, and then that is it. You get disqualified apparently. I'm hoping we don't get to that point at all, but yes, it is quite possible that your entire node will be disqualified from the network if it doesn't stay up and perform. So bear that in mind before you think about doing something like this. Make sure that you've got a resilient network, power supply and machine to service the network with your node. So each one of these satellites, and I'm not looked into where they are yet. This one here I can see is EU STORJ IO. I'm assuming that's a European one. There's one here, Salt Lake Tardigrade. Now it could be a US based one. I'm going to have to wait until it finishes refreshing now and go back down. AP1, no idea where that is. Here's another US one. Maybe that's a US one. Not sure where they are, but you can see that they're all showing at the moment 100%, which means things are good. It means I've not been suspended. If that 100% starts flying down on any of those, it means I'm not supporting the network enough. You know, either my system's not performing or it's going down too much, and that'll start to degrade, and that's when you risk suspension. Audit, it looks like everything they've thrown at me, I've been audited well across all 4 at 100%, and I've been online with all 4 for 100% of the time, regardless of the fact that it looks like it just went out for a small amount of time. And then the next things, you've got your wallet address, so that's your receive address for the ERC20 token on, in my case, MetaMask. And then you've got your projections of your earnings. So, well, not projections, but actual earnings. So in the 1, 2, 3 days of vetting and auditing, I've only earned the equivalent of 6 cents. There's a total earned figure and a total held amount before payment as well. So I wasn't expecting to make anything in the first 3 months. I thought the auditing and vetting period would be a period where you just wouldn't get anything, but obviously I'm getting paid a very small amount for the auditing that's going through and the bandwidth they're using, but it doesn't look like anybody is extracting any major data from this system yet. So, you know, as I say, it's a waiting period. Don't expect too much from it right off the bat. This is playing the long game, unfortunately. Okay, so one thing I have noticed, I mean, if you've been a chia farmer like me in the past, you're dealing with huge volumes of data. You're moving terabytes of plots around and storing terabytes of plot. I think at the max I was up to about 200 terabytes of plots that I'd stored, and that was being used to service the chia network. We're dealing with a different animal here. This is normal data, not 100 and whatever gigabyte plots. So it's good. It takes a while to get used to the fact that only small amounts of data are coming through. I mean, as you can see there, total bandwidth 188.41, and there's not a lot not a lot of stuff being moving around, and that's good to see, because it makes a change from your disk getting eaten up so quickly, and it does show you that this is going to take a long time to fill up these disks that I've got. But anyway, that's the dashboard. That's what it's doing. As I say, I will investigate and find out why 2 hours ago it decided to restart itself, whether it be the node or the machine. I'm sure something in the event viewer will give a clue as to what's happened, and I'll fill you in on that next time. But that is my STORJ setup for now. Well, I hope that's been interesting for you. I know it's been long, but there's a lot to talk about. STORJ is not a 5-minute implementation. There's a lot to it. I've hopefully tried to break the video down a little bit and sort it out into chapters so you can jump around easily and find the information that you want. But if you're thinking about doing something similar to this, utilize the STORJ website pages and go through them in detail, because they do tell you absolutely everything. And there's a lot of information in various blogs, and of course in the forums and the community support channels as well, where people have had difficulties in setting up their node, and usually these STORJ engineers have been able to put them into the right direction. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Please bear with me and stick with me and go on this journey with me as we explore STORJ together. If you liked this video, it would be great, if you're not a subscriber already, to subscribe to the channel, because it really helps. Please leave comments, ask any questions that you want to. Hit the bell notification icon so you know when I put up my next video on STORJ. But for now, I'll see you later.